We're going to take a look at some tourism-driven numbers now with Meredith Kunza, who's the Director of Research and Destination Development for Tourism Whistler. Meredith's originally from Ontario, like a great amount of people here in Whistler. We forgive them all because, you stay long enough, we just wash it right out of you. It's all good. Meredith's passion for the mountains drew her to the Whistler area in 2008 after graduating from university. Now in her role as Director of Research and Destination Development at Tourism Whistler, she's responsible for measuring visitor demographics, volumes, and satisfaction to better understand the Whistler guest. Under her leadership, her team uses data to analyze the quality of the visitor experience while in resort and to develop unique Whistler offerings to drive visitation during need periods. Meredith and her team work regularly with the Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance to measure the economic impact of community-supported festivals, events, and products, and have been involved with a number of economic impact assessments in Whistler. In 2016, Meredith served as the project designer and lead for the Whistler Mountain Biking Impact Study, which measured the impact of all mountain biking in Whistler, including the Whistler Mountain Bike Park, cross-country biking, and the annual Crankworx Whistler Mountain Bike Festival. Meredith, come on up.
So just in case you thought all the graphs were done, the researcher is here now. But I only have about 4 or 5 graphs, I promise. So before I get started, I am going to share a little bit of proprietary information today, which is collected through our research department, and it's really for our members. I'm sharing it in this closed audience today, but it's not intended for media or social media, although I know like a cool line graph is really cool on the gram, but let's not do that. So for Tourism Whistler, we measure growth in room nights in the resort. So this graph shows room nights since 1998. I've combined winter and summer seasons for each 12-month period here. It aligns with our reporting cycle. So in the last season, which is winter 2017-18 and summer 2018, we exceeded 1.3 million room nights and hit an occupancy of 67%. That's exceeding a previous, well, we've exceeded it twice now, a previous resort goal of 60% occupancy. So you can see there's a clear trend of growth here, and we've seen a few different growth graphs in different ways today. And there's a few factors driving this. Demand, of course, is one. Whistler is increasingly sought after. But there's new accommodation booking channels. So over this 19-year span, hotels have opened, and when the demand is there, those hotel rooms can then increase as well, or fill as well. And there's independent rentals that have grown, so people who have condos. Sorry, I'm kind of nervous. I don't usually get nervous. I would have some water. It's funny, I do a lot of presentations, but I'm not usually nervous. Thank you. So people with independent rentals are now exploring that opportunity like Airbnb, and they may not have in the past. And then, of course, the most recent economic expansion since 2009, which Helmut touched on, has created an environment for growth. So consumers have disposable income, although maybe some of our U.S. guests won't once they have to buy appliances, which we saw that washing machines are going up in price. So when we break that out by season, winter is the top line here, summer is the bottom line. For winter, you can see they're both increasing steadily. Summer is the more emerging product when you look at the history of Whistler, so it's on a little bit more aggressive growth trend, and it isn't as impacted by snow and weather impacts. So I don't have a laser pointer today, I don't think. Do I? Oh, I do, right here. So winter of 14-15 was a below average snow year, and we see little impacts and dips in the winter line. So for winter, our most recent season hit an occupancy of 71%, and it was the 7th consecutive season where we saw increases in average daily rates in accommodation and revenue per available room. In the summer, 64%, and it also had the 7th consecutive year of increases in rates and revenue for accommodation. And those room nights come in peaks and valleys throughout the year. We've talked about peak seasons and busy times. The red line up here is 90% occupancy, where you can see that we exceed that sometimes, and that's sort of peak operating occupancy. These peak periods last from about Christmas through to Easter in the winter, and in the summer, July, August, and now even September. September wasn't always included in that peak period. And then in these peak times, we're at peak occupancy in hotels, which is what, or accommodation, which is what this is showing. We're also at peak operating capacity for activities and dining and restaurants. Everyone has high volumes. Our need periods continue to be November, late April, May, June, and October. So in reaching this place of growth, we've definitely seen some trends emerge in recent years. I'm going to go over a few of them for us today. Not surprisingly, increasing costs and overall accommodation rates. So a vacation in Whistler is becoming increasingly expensive. Flights to get here, dining, activities, accommodation. It's not unique to Whistler, and in fact, when we look at our competitors, Pat touched on it just in real estate alone, we are not the most expensive, especially like at mountain resort destinations, but these trends and this increasing trend has an impact on our guests, and it changes their behavior. Accommodation rates alone have increased dramatically since 2010. So winter has increased 176% for accommodation rates, and summer 58%. So this is possible because of high demand, and the increases are higher in the peak periods than the off-peak periods, but averaged out, this is what it comes to. And it's having some effect on our price-sensitive markets. So in response to these higher rates, visitors are booking further in advance. We have successful book early and save campaigns, and over half of our visitors are booking 3 or more months in advance now. 5 years ago, that was just 1/3. And Pete spoke about how this weatherproofs us for the future. So a positive trend there. These increased costs, we're seeing more people booking direct with owners. So that's things like Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO. Currently, more than 25%, that's more than 1 in 4 of our visitors are booking through this channel. And just 3 years ago, that was only 13%. Now, we only started measuring this a few years ago because Airbnb and that type of booking is only recently grown in popularity. So some of that market share is just the popularity of the channel. But the shift is also driven by people being able to find more affordable rates through this route. And also it's available inventory when traditional hotels and property managed condos are full. Then people can shift over to this channel where there might be inventory left. I should note that most of the way that we track owner direct rentals are the legal ones that are on resort lands zoned for nightly rental. But we do know that there are some illegal ones in Whistler, that those would be in residential neighborhoods. But in our room night numbers, those ones are not included. And the other impact of rising costs is people are shifting to more off-peak months. So I showed you that peaks and valleys a couple slides ago. September is now at 70% occupancy. It's grown 28% over the last 5 years. And that's a result of more programming, festivals, and events in the off-peak months, but also the ability to find more affordable rates. Next, we've seen a decline in our BC visitor. So from 40% share down to 19% market share in this period. So this is combined winter and summer, and this does include a mix of overnight and day visitors together. So a balanced, diverse portfolio of markets is important, and our BC guest is important. They're loyal customers. They feel Whistler is their local resort, and they can be some of our biggest promoters. And they visit frequently over and over again. They also create a consistent base of room nights in all of our months, not just the peak months, but the off-peak months as well, when our international visitors are less likely to travel. This decline in BC visitors is directly mirrored or in parallel with a decline in day visitors. So our day visitors, of course, tend to be people who can drive here. They don't have to fly, and the majority of them are BC visitors. So if BC is going down, our day visitors are going to go down as well. And a decline in BC visitors also aligns with the increasing costs and prices. This is a price-sensitive market. So in contrast to the share of BC visitors, we've seen an increase in our long-haul destination markets. So we've seen increases in key markets like UK, Germany, and Australia, and niche markets, emerging markets like Switzerland, Netherlands, Singapore, Taiwan, Indonesia, Mexico. These ones are all smaller market share, but each of them is growing independently. These are destination markets. They stay longer, they travel midweek, and they book well in advance. An interesting point I wanted to make here is that this data is from our visitor survey. So we intercept people in the village And we talk about how they booked in any way. So they may stay in a traditional accommodation like a hotel, but they could be camping or they could be staying in an owner direct rental like Airbnb. So this includes everyone. If we look at just traditional accommodation like hotels and property managed condos, some of our key markets like UK and Australia, we're actually seeing declines from those markets. Overall, they're here. Our survey shows that, but they're not in traditional accommodation, so they're shifting to more owner direct rentals. One more point on this is that with increased US and international visitors, we're seeing an increase in those first-time visitors. Makes sense. We have new awareness to Whistler, and that's a good thing. But it's interesting because we don't only want to focus on new visitors to Whistler as a long-term strategy. We need people that come back again and again, and we need those people to engage with us. So the last trend I want to point out is our visitor feedback. So this is our newest data set. To date, we've tracked over 15,000 comments over 5 seasons to get better insights about the experience once people are in Whistler. So not just room nights and how much they paid, but what they felt while they were here. So I'm going to show you a few high-level trends. They won't surprise you, but the sheer volume in each of these categories drives home how important the experience is while people are here. So on the positive side, the atmosphere and the vibe is a draw for Whistler. And it's amazing how much people use the exact same words. So over and over, we get words like fun, lively, feeling of laid back and cozy, and they feel at home and welcome even if it's their first time here. And they also mention the village and the twinkling lights as part of the atmosphere at nighttime. And visitors highlight specific experiences that are unique to Whistler as some of the best parts of their trip. Seeing bears on the mountain, views from iconic points from Harmony Ridge or seeing Black Tusk, and they talk about marmots, which they know Whistler was named after. And then, of course, customer service comes up. When it's good, it's great, and our visitors talk about it and notice it. The contrast is, within these 15,000 comments, we do have a trend, some negative trends, and they directly counteract some of the things that we know our visitors love, and they're coming as a result of the trends that I just spoke about. So we have lots of comments about price and value for money. Not a surprise, there's thousands of them. But it's not just price, it's always price in relation to something. Our visitors actually come prepared to pay a bit higher price in Whistler, and they expect it, and they tell us that in the comments. But they talk about visitor or price in relation to the experience. So for a repeat visitor, they come back again and again every year, but they pay a little bit more every year, but they're not feeling like the experience is increasing at the same rate. Or price in relation to the quality. So for the price, the accommodation better be updated and renovated. And for the price, the restaurant experience has to be appropriate. We have comments about desire for unique offerings. So we see this in comments when people talk about an experience that, well, I could have had this at home, or I had this at another resort destination. They want the things that make it Whistler. And then we do see comments, although we have tons of positive customer service comments, we have some about challenges with service levels. So we know that we have some labor shortage. We already heard about that a couple of times today. And our frontline staff can be overstretched at peak times. Some businesses can't offer full business hours, and that can translate to our customer at some times. So when we connect all these trends, we can identify some key challenges. Growth is happening. It will probably continue. But we're faced with the challenge of how to approach it responsibly. So growing in the places that we have space to grow, and growing in a way that maintains the uniqueness of the Whistler experience and the quality of the Whistler experience. And we're faced with overall rising costs and accommodation prices. It's affecting some of our important markets, some of our loyal markets. It's also affecting tour operator bookings. So those UK and Australia guests that I mentioned aren't booking through traditional hotels as much anymore. They used to, historically, book primarily through tour operators, which gets them into hotels. They're shifting away from that channel, and they're booking more through Airbnb. But if those types of rentals reach a price that's not sustainable for them, will we see some of those key destination markets decline? And we're faced with a need for balance throughout the year, so to get away from those big peaks and valleys. We have peak periods, and they're popular, and they make Whistler popular. People talk about us then, but we have businesses that experience staff shortages. And we have off-peak periods with room for growth, but sometimes there's some product gaps. Maybe not all businesses are open. Some people close for renovations in those times. And the lack of balance makes having year-round staff a challenge, which can affect the service levels, which we can see in the comments are important to our visitors. So we need to balance those peaks and valleys. So for Tourism Whistler, I mean, these are big, lofty challenges. Tourism Whistler can't solve them all. We'd love to. But we have a role to play. So for us, it's about a responsible tourism vision. Our marketing and promotion can't be about attracting anyone, anytime. We want to approach growth, but in the right way. So our job is to communicate to the visitor the benefits of off-peak times, like June versus August, or an off-peak time like November or early December versus February. We have another job to communicate to our members, all of our business operators, all the trends that we just talked about here and more, so that when we talk about growth, we have a united vision for balance. And we also want to work with our members to create unique experiences in off-peak times so it's attractive when we promote those times. And I think another piece, which I don't really have data for this, but I think we can use our voice as a marketing engine to educate our visitors about Whistler, to help them care for it and engage with us and engage with our community. So specifically on these things, some of our active things that we're working on, we're focusing on off-peak periods. All of our incremental marketing funds go towards this. So we can address some pricing challenges by encouraging travel in more affordable months, and we can promote balance by shifting visitors away from the peak periods a little bit. It's okay if those come down a little bit, and rise the off-peak periods a little bit. And we're already working with members to ensure that there are unique experiences in the off-peak times. We have a destination development department that works with all of our different sectors. Most recently, in October, we featured Whistler Wine Walks. That showcased multiple art galleries on a walking tour every Friday of the month, and there were free wine tastings at each. We're right now exploring more food and beverage experiences in May, and we just met with the health and wellness sector this past week to talk about how we can promote their offerings in June. And finally, conference business will continue to be a focus for us. They travel midweek, they book in advance, and they travel in off-peak periods. So again, promoting a more balanced visitation. And we're also working to re-engage the regional market. So these markets are a stable visitation for our community. We can re-engage them by creating packages and booking offers to help them find value. We know that's important to this market. And we want to focus on loyalty programs. So Whistler.com, our online booking engine, most recently rebranded and revamped their Whistler Rewards program, which is a program for regional visitors. And we've already seen a boost in membership. And we can encourage this market to travel in our shoulder periods because there's a value incentive, it's a little bit quieter, and the experience is still great. So overall, Whistler, there's demand for Whistler and it's growing. This comes with positive trends. We're seeing growing interest in Whistler, we have new key markets, and visitors are booking more and more in advance, so helping us remain stable. But there's challenges with our loyal markets, there's challenges with peaks and valleys, and there's challenges at times maintaining the unique Whistler experience through all of this. So we have an opportunity to approach future growth responsibly, and Tourism Whistler is committed to doing this by focusing on our loyal markets and the need periods where we have room for growth. And that is all for me.